But it actually goes hand in hand because we are seeing how the environment is directly affecting the patients that we're seeing. There's a huge rise in respiratory diseases and also comorbidities that we're seeing in our patients. It does go hand in hand. And also, I think as healthcare providers, advocating for the environment is showing the public healthcare providers do care about the environment.
Hey, healthcare providers, you're listening to the Burnt Out to Lit Up podcast. Hosted by myself, Erica, and my husband, Michael. We're an OTPT team that understands the healthcare industry's got some serious issues.
Inspired by our own experience with burnout, we've made it our mission and passion to help you navigate your career in healthcare by cultivating wellness, growing both personally and professionally, and advocating for a better workplace.
Whether you are a clinician or manager, new grad or seasoned vet, join us each week as we share interviews, research, stories, and strategies that will give you the tools to go from burnt out to your most lit up self.
Let's dive in.
So in a perfect world, in a perfect sustainable world, there would be no more plastic bags. Everyone would have tote bags. There would be no more straws, no more plastic utensils. Everything would be run on hydro or solar power, and we'd all be happy. That's my ideal world. Why is that so hard?
Yeah, you know what infuriates me about recycling is that when you hear about stuff being thrown away from recycling because it's not recycled properly.
Yeah.
Like, because it's not like the right number, or if like it's dirty, or if it has a cap or something like that. It's like, that's unbelievably frustrating to me. I feel like there should be one container for all the stuff that's recyclable and that goes to a place and it gets recycled. Like why can that not be a thing? Like,
their job can be to discern between the different recyclables, and then instead of just throwing it away.
Yeah, I went to a recycling center when I was in college because I was an environmental studies major for a year, and we went to a recycling center, and there were like, we were walking around literally mountains of recycled material, or at least things that were thrown in recycling cans, and some of these huge mounds of trash, they were like, yeah, we're just throwing that away because it's not recyclable. It's like different wrappings and things that people thought that it was recyclable, but
so
it's
people
not.
Thought they were, but it's actually not. It can't be recycled.
Well, that, or like it's it has to be like a perfect condition for it to be in for them to recycle it properly or something like that. And like they have these conveyor belts that there's people standing at sorting, and all they do is sort all day long. So it's not like a sorting issue. Like for some reason it's like a receptacle issue,
Very interesting.
And it just needs to be better.
I know there's a documentary about this. We haven't seen it yet because I know I'd get depressed.
Yeah.
But
anyway, that pisses me off when I see that.
Yeah, well, what makes me happy is seeing more products being come in packaging that's compostable.
Yeah,
that makes me so happy.
True.
And I've been seeing this more and more.
And that's another thing too about composting. It's like if you have a compostable, like they have those plastic forks.
Yeah.
Or they look plastic. I don't know what they're made out of, but they say that they're compostable.
Yeah.
Does that mean that if you put it in a landfill that it's okay? Or do you have to have a special composting center dispose of it properly? Because if you take that thing that's compostable and you throw it in the trash, that doesn't automatically go to a composting thing.
No, that's another
So it's like
question.
Their head's in the right place, but it may not get disposed of properly.
Well, we were talking to your cousin Dan. They just had a baby and they got diapers that are made of bamboo.
Right. And
he says that in a landfill, so maybe it does.
Right, something that's biodegradable.
It's biodegradable.
That's a different thing from composting, right? Because people get these little, home composting units where I'm not even entirely sure what composting means.
We're just talking out of our butts. We don't know.
But I do know that it's a special process. It's not like something that's compostable you can just bury in the ground.
No, because I remember one day we were on our way to a wedding. It could have been you and me. Could have been me and someone else. Before I dated you. I don't know.
Whose wedding was it? I would probably remember.
You know what? No, it was with my ex. I'm sorry. Okay. We were on our way to our wedding, and I saw, it was Coconut Grove, Miami. I saw this composting garden. It was very specific. They were composting old banana peels and old, peels of fruits and things like that. So it was like a special thing. I remember passing by. Yeah.
That made me think of something.
What?
That I saw something on Twitter the other day. It was like, when you die, if you want to be put inside of like a
Oh boy.
like a pod.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Did you ever see the movie Cocoon?
No.
Anyway, if you've seen the movie Cocoon, there's these aliens and
I don't like alien movies.
they go inside like these cocoons and then anyway, it doesn't matter.
Is it a scary movie?
So when you die, they can put your body in this. No, it's not scary.
Okay.
I mean, I guess it depends on what you define scary, but
Yeah.
they put you in this like thing that like a tree basically grows out of the pod and
Right.
uses your body's
Wow.
nutrients to
Whoa.
feed the tree. So like that would be really cool because then cemeteries, instead of just being like useless land, they can just be forests.
I like that.
And instead of having a headstone and like this morbid, unproductive land, you could just have forests and like you could go see my tree.
Oh my god, that makes me want to cry.
Yeah.
What a sweet idea.
Yeah.
Where is this being done?
I don't remember. It was an article I read a couple months ago. I'm sure I can find it on Twitter.
That's a great idea. That's how I want to be processed.
Right. I mean, it seems so cool to me that cemeteries could be just big forests.
Oh my
and
god.
you could just walk through forests and they could be public, lands and
But
parks.
how beautiful that your body is
Yeah.
giving back to more life.
Part of the pod is
gosh.
because the pod's made out of like sod or like earth or some kind of
Earthy materials.
yeah. So it looked like that, and then your body will feed the tree.
All right, so now everyone listening, right?
Yeah, become a tree. Okay, don't get put in a coffin that's made out of metal and doesn't decompose, and you reserve that little dumb spot of land for all eternity. It's
Oh my God.
silly.
It's a bit of a morbid topic, but like I don't mind really talking about death.
Your tree can
You're not
nourish the world, and
your death brings about new life. Okay.
and then someone can build a house out of
convinced.
you.
I'm so convinced.
And then your soul will be a house.
Oh my god! And then you can haunt the house.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Anyway.
Our brains. Anyway, so we talk about this because our guest, Emily Cheng, we talk about sustainability on this episode, and I admire her so much because, she's like a normal person. She's not an environmentalist she doesn't do a job. I mean, she's a nurse, right? So she got into environmental advocacy and sustainability through her own interests. So she's someone that is learning, and she talks about that. And I think that's really cool because you don't have to be this expert to start making changes in your life. And we do go into how you can start making little changes. But you know what's crazy? To think about like the things that make up our lives in our society, so many of those things are single use, right? And like, for example, a toothbrush. Every toothbrush that's ever been made, like the toothbrushes we have since, the 1930s, they still live on this earth. Isn't that like a crazy thought?
Yeah.
A toothbrush isn't necessarily single use. I mean, but it kind of is because after, 3 months or whatever, you toss it out. And, Mike and I use bamboo brushes now, and I know there's other solutions to that. And that's just one little example.
The thing that scares me most about plastic is microplastics now.
Well, yeah.
They found microplastics in
even the bottom
embedded in the ice of Antarctica.
Right. They found
It's everywhere. It's in the
microplastics
air.
everywhere.
Yep. Every time you wash your clothes, if your clothes is made out of what is that, polyester? Isn't that kind of like a plasticky material? Or anything on your clothes that's plastic or not, made out of a plant like cotton or whatever. Every time you wash it, on the microscopic level, pieces are torn off of it and they go into the water supply.
Yeah, the fish we eat. I mean, we don't want to get like crazy here and scary, but it's true. These are facts we have to deal with.
Sorry, go ahead. Again, I could keep interrupting.
I know. No, I mean, these are facts we have to deal with. And side note, I mean, like, yes, we're going to introduce M now, but side note, that's why sustainable fashion is so important. Right. And that's a personal thing I'm going through. Like, I've been thrifting more. I've been, for Christmas, I put some expensive sustainable clothes on my list. So thank you, Mom and Linda, for buying me those things, because those clothes are made sustainably and ethically in the US and from organic materials. And I've done a lot of research, and I'm not in a place right now to be spending a lot of money on new clothes anyway, but if I were, I'm thrifting more, and B, I would try to go for those brands like Everlane. I mean, I don't really have anything from Everlane, but those are just some, there's brands out there that are, if you have to buy something new, there are brands out there that are making clothes sustainably. And just food for thought, making a difference in our personal lives does drive, the demands in the market. So your choice matters.
Yeah.
Amen.
And I think...
Well, thanks for coming to our TED Talk.
Yes. Thank you for attending. In the episode, M talks about, when she was first starting, her Instagram and her brand, she was, trying to decide like, okay, I'm a nurse. Is there a link that I can make between sustainability and nursing and travel nursing and stuff like that? Like, how can I link those two things together? And I personally think they're absolutely related, because environmentalism and conservation
impacts all
humans. It's a public health issue more than anything else. I mean, it absolutely sucks to have an ocean full of plastic. And that plastic, amongst all the other things we're talking about here, hurts everyone's health, and who better to inform the public about it than healthcare providers.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Amen. Like I said, there's this, shift I think we make, that we are making collectively. I can't speak for everyone, but I feel this shift in society, that we're making a shift from, what only happens to me, that's what the only thing I'm concerned about, to what happens to everyone should concern us. Like, we all have, I'm seeing that more and more, which is such a good movement towards this, accountability and responsibility that we have, to play a part in doing something for the greater good of the planet and society. So M, short for Emily, duh. M is a travel nurse, entrepreneur, innovator, creative, environmentalist, and medical and outdoor influencer. Currently based out of Seattle, Washington, she is a multi-passionate woman currently working on launching 2 businesses, one in the outdoors medical space and one in the travel healthcare community space. Outside of her passion projects, she lives intentionally and mindfully. She fills her time in the outdoors as much as she can, especially in the mountains, backpacking, and hiking. M loves to challenge herself and cherishes every day to be a gift to do better for herself, the planet, and the world at large. You can find her on Instagram at, this is the best play on words ever, because she's a nurse, Explorin, like EXPLORN, like nurse RN, Explorin _EM Cheng. Don't worry, link is in the show notes. You can also find her on YouTube and Facebook at Explorin M Cheng. Sorry, I sound really weird. So
you'll get it if you see it.
Yeah,
if you didn't get it already.
It's fine. I'm awkward all the time. So before we move on to the episode, if you are new or if you've been listening for a while and you haven't left a review, then what are you doing?
Please do that.
Actually, we ask first and foremost if you like us to subscribe. Okay, that's step number 1.
That's true.
And step number 2, if you have a free moment to leave us a little honest review on iTunes and rate our show, we appreciate it so much. So thank you. Again, I don't know if I didn't mention this. Oh, okay, really quick. We're going to start reading your questions in these little intros. So if you have a question about burnout, stress, healthcare, if it's something applicable and relatable to the show, DM us your question and we're going to start reading and answering questions on the show. So DM us at joy.energy.time. It may be a few weeks until you see this in effect because we batch record these intros, but we will start doing this. So send us your questions. Thanks.
Sweet.
Bye. Welcome to the Burnt Out a Little podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. I feel so honored.
I'm so excited, especially also because we met IRL
Yes.
at a meetup, and I was so excited to meet you. I just really clicked with you. I've told you that before. I've like clicked with like your vibe and like everything that you like embody. So like getting to meet you was really cool, and now having you on the show is really cool. So I'm just really excited.
Yes, I'm so excited for the conversation we're going to have. I know it's going to be a good one.
Yes, and it's a big topic in my life, in your life, and I know lots of people are interested in this topic. And I'm referring to like sustainability, but we're also going to talk about other things, and we can start with who you are and your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, loaded question, but I'll start in the beginning. So, I was born and raised in New York, and now I live in Seattle, Washington, and I'm a travel nurse. And so, I became a travel nurse close to 2 years now that I've left New York. It's kind of crazy how fast time goes. But I left New York and I decided to go straight from coast to coast. So I went straight to California and spent 10 months there as a traveler. And then I've been almost in Seattle for a year now. So I clearly like it here a lot. But in addition to travel nursing, I'm also an entrepreneur in making. I'm going to be taking nurses to the backcountry this summer, and then I can't fully disclose what my second project is right now, but it is going to be for traveling healthcare providers. And so, yeah, I do a lot of things that have to do with traveling. And as well, I am really, really passionate about the outdoors and outdoor advocacy and also sustainability, which I know that we're going to talk about more. So I'm really excited.
Awesome. So, when you, first of all, like what led you into nursing? And then when you entered nursing, did you always think, oh, I'm going to be a traveler? Or was that more of like a recent choice?
Sure. So I decided to become a nurse after I became a nurse aide. I got certified as a nurse aide, and I was actually going into college to become a physician assistant, and you need like patient hours. And so I became a nurse's aide to get those hours for PA school. And then after I became a nurse aide and did like an internship at a nursing home, I saw what nurses did. And I just fell in love with the fact that they build so much rapport and trust with their patients. And they actually get to really know their patients as opposed to a provider who only gets a snapshot of them throughout their day. And so I quickly changed to nursing, and I always knew I wanted to help people. I swam competitively into college, and my high school and college coach both passed away while I was competing. And they were father figures in my life. And losing those really important figures in my life really motivated me to want to become a healthcare professional because I've been on the side of being a uh, patient's family member or caregiver. And so I knew that my compassion, I could always be compassionate towards patients and their family members because I knew what it was like to have a sick family member or friend.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I went into nursing school not knowing I wanted to be a travel nurse until my last year of nursing school when I learned about it, I'm pretty sure at a conference. And I thought it was the coolest concept ever to be able to travel and also to be paid to travel and to be able to help patients in my career. And so after I learned about travel nursing, I literally used it as kind of like a bullseye as far as like everything that I did from my last year of nursing school to picking my job. Everything was using that as like my goal. And so when I graduated, I went straight into critical care. I got hired into an ICU, and it was in coronary care and also in thoracic ICU. And so I did that, and then I transferred over to open heart surgery ICU, and I got almost exactly 2.5 years of experience. And then I left for travel nursing, and I knew the amount of experience I needed under my belt in which specialties, and I just worked my butt off to get as good as I can in my specialty because I knew that I needed to have my skills and my knowledge super, super fine tuned before I left for travel nursing. And so, yeah, I've been travel nursing for almost 2 years, and it was the best decision of my life.
That's awesome. And I'm so glad you highlighted that because I get that question quite a bit. Like, I'm a new grad. Should I jump into travel therapy? And I always say no. But Mike, my husband, sometimes, like, depending on the situation, he'll tell someone, yeah, just go for it. And I believe that you definitely need to have some sort of mentorship, some sort of like stability and in honing your skills and knowing what settings like you want to gain your strengths in before I think you're just thrown into this situation where you have no support. You're expected to be up and running the first day. And so, before we go into like other topics, I want to ask you first, what would be your advice for someone that's a new grad, whether you could speak more so to nurses, but what's your advice in terms of like someone wanting to start travel therapy but they're new and you went the route of like honing your skills, so what would your advice be?
I think experience is the number one thing that you need to go into any traveling healthcare profession. And I think it's so easy to become so kind of obsessed with the lifestyle because that's all we see on Instagram and social media is this glamorous lifestyle of constant travel, being able to take as long as we want off of vacations and living in really cool places and just like living up the life. But I have also been on the end of, taking care of patients where I didn't necessarily have firsthand experience, and it's very stressful because orientation's super short and they expect you to know and be able to hit the ground running, and it's everything about travel nursing or travel therapy in general is very scary and stressful to begin with, especially in that first month. There's just so much change. You're learning new staff, you're learning new policies, the way people do things, finding supplies, everything's just so new. And I think I wouldn't have taken back or shortened my experience even by a day because it's really set me up for success in every hospital that I've been to. Because even if I haven't seen something, I have such good background knowledge and skills to be able to handle anything. And with experience too, I think in anything, you just learn how to speak up for yourself. And I don't necessarily think you don't learn that as a new grad. You're super shy. You don't know how to advocate for yourself, for patients yet. You don't know how to speak up. And that takes time and experience. And I know that's like a not sexy answer is that it takes time, but that's the truth. So I think my biggest advice is like, don't rush it. And I think everyone's like, I need to learn everything about traveling right now. Like, how can I get started? And I'm like, let's take a big step back. The first thing you need to focus on is making sure that you get really good at whatever specialty that you're in and get the experience that you need to travel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we live in a society where there's instant gratification, and we do see the highlights in social media of someone being able to go to Hawaii and surf during their rotation and all this. But like, there's so much grueling work underneath that. A, and then B, like you said, there's nothing wrong with taking your time. Like, you have your whole career to like think about it. Like, you have your whole career. Like, there's no point in rushing. And I like to think of like, each year or each phase of your career, you're just layering on top of that. And I think for travel is something that you shouldn't just like rush into. And again, on the other side of that, Mike thought about travel therapy for like 2 years before he actually like did it. So he kind of like really sat on it for a while, but also it wasn't like the timing wasn't right. And then once we were like, okay, like we have nothing holding us back, like let's just go for it. So there was like a certain level of like preparedness, but also like jumping, like just kind of like jumping into it. And that was like after a few years he had already been like on his own. So yeah, it's quite an interesting, life, travel therapy, travel nursing.
Yeah, it's definitely unique. And I know a lot of people say like, oh, I could never do that. Like, I commend you for what you do. And I think honestly, with anything in life, if you really wanted it enough, you could make it work. I understand there's like certain circumstances that make it more difficult, like owning a house or having a spouse or having kids, but it's not impossible. People do it all the time. It's just how badly do you want it? That's how you make it work, is how badly you want it. So I think hearing like, oh, you can only be a traveling healthcare provider when you're young and single. That's such a stigma. I
Mm.
love seeing when I see like travel families or I see travel couples. I'm like, no, I see so many different types of people doing this. And
Hmm.
even like people who retire and then this is like their way to travel the country with their spouse in like their RV or something. I'm like, everybody can do this in whatever way works for them.
Hmm.
I don't think that there's just like one mold of what a traveler is.
Absolutely, absolutely. And have your parents been support like your family, your parents, have they been supportive of you pursuing travel therapy and your whole journey in general?
Yeah, so definitely in the beginning when I told them that I wanted to be a travel nurse, I think any parent is going to be worried about their kid like, leaving the state, leaving their home. And I think from my dad's perspective, he was most concerned about what about your retirement and what about health insurance, all those safety things that we have from a staff job. And I had to become educated about all those things. And I was like, I'm pretty sure all these thousands of people aren't just living up this lifestyle without having this security. So I had to do more research and then I educated him and said like, there's all these things that you can do. You can open up an IRA account, like all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's just education around it because again with social media it just looks like we're living up this YOLO life without having savings and all these like security things that you would normally have from a staff job. So after they learned about all the things that I could do to actually make a great living and not just be living paycheck to paycheck, they were way more willing. And it took them, I gave them a good 2.5 years to mentally prepare before I left. So they were excited for me. I think my parents still think that this is a phase that I just have to like live through and then I'll just come back. But I think they're slowly understanding that I'll most likely stay somewhere on the West Coast in the long run. And they're preparing for that and they're very open. And they said, as long as you're happy, we're happy too. And yeah, my parents are open to moving where I am. So that makes me happy.
That's great. I know also, like, from our experience, it's like a generational thing where it's like, why haven't you bought a house yet? Like, why haven't, like, all these questions come. And whenever we like a placement, some people in our family will be like, why don't you just like move there and buy a house there? And that, and I think it's just like, you're right. It's a lot of education. It's not just this like reckless life. Like, you can be responsible with money. And a lot of people choose travel because you can make a lot of money and you can pay off your student loan, you know, compared to perhaps like a more steady, like a stable, like a permanent job rather quickly. Like, a lot of travelers do that. And so that's that, there's all, and it's, I don't know, it's not necessarily new, but maybe compared to maybe 30 years ago, I mean, I don't know when it first started, but like it could be just like something that more people are getting accustomed to, the idea of like, you can have this life and you could have it for as long as you want or as little as you want. You could be as old as you want, as young, whatever, like you can just like pursue it. So I really like that.
Yeah, I love that there's so much variability in terms of like getting really deep into your why. Like, are you doing this for the lifestyle? Are you, like you said, paying off debt? Are you saving up for something? There's just so many reasons to do it, and everybody has a different reason or many reasons. The reasons for me going into it is so multifold, and I think it's just not comparing yourself to other people's journeys, which of course with social media is so hard to do,
Yeah.
but just getting really, really like focused on why you want to necessarily do traveling therapy or travel nursing, and just not comparing yourself to other people with like the house thing. Especially, I think it's really hard for parents and people at home to see us travel, and then if we've been somewhere for a long time, asking us those questions of when are you going to settle down. And I think especially as a traveler, that's like one of the worst
Mm.
questions to ask, because I know with most travelers we have a very adventurous soul, and so hearing the word settle down is like, at least for me personally, I don't want to be trapped or ever feel like I need to stay somewhere. Like, I hate that feeling. And I think the word that, or the phrase that I've really liked recently has been like plant roots. Like if I decide to plant roots somewhere, it's because I'm choosing to, not that I have to. And yeah, I think those milestones of, like getting married and having a house and kids, it's such a traditional lifestyle that I totally think it's beautiful that people want that lifestyle, but it doesn't necessarily need to be everyone's lifestyle or be on, this like traditional trajectory or timeline that everybody projects onto each person. So I mean, that's so hard, but I think we can, just taking a look at your journey and like you said before, like not rushing it and just saying like whatever is right for me at whatever time is going to be right for me.
Yes, I totally agree with that planting roots phrase. I'm going to use that. And sometimes, like, I'm not the one doing the travel therapy, at least not yet. I said I would be open to it, but right now, Joy Energy Times is taking up all my time, and I am okay with that. And I'm so, first of all, grateful that Mike has allowed for that, and we can make this work in this way. And I'm just like tagging along for his travel therapy adventures, and I feel very much a part of it. And then there's also like a part of me that's like, I can't wait to like, I hate the word settle down too, so like plant roots and have my own home and like have my own things. But then I realize, wait, like I have everything I need with me right now. So it's like an interesting a mindset shift and all these things, and we wouldn't have it any other way right now, although life can be so chaotic, and just like the little things that you take for granted like in normal life. In travel therapy, you're faced with that, like booking a flight. I can't book a flight yet to my sister's wedding because I don't know where I will live yet, like things like that. So anyway, I would love to transition into sustainability, and I can't hold myself back. I'm so excited because I've been into this topic like for a long time, since I was a little kid. Before, I guess it was cool, and I was always trying to bug my parents to recycle, and I would print little things and hang them up in the house. I even wrote a letter to like the principal of my high school asking if they could like turn the lights off while no one's in the classroom, things like that. I've always kind of been, into it and trying to be an advocate for it. And I would love to know your story, how you got into it, because that's something you also on your social media, that's something that you stand for and you advocate for. So how did you get into it?
So I think I was always just eco-friendly because even before it's like the craze right now and there's so much like literature around it, social media posts and stuff. But I feel like in New York, I just would see little news pieces and things like that. And I'd always be like, well, why would we not do this if it's better for the planet? But I wasn't truly that strongly advocating for the environment until I became a travel nurse, because as a travel nurse, I've been able to be introduced to backpacking and hiking and just experiencing so much of nature's beauty in the United States. It's really made me so much more passionate about it. Having that firsthand experience with the outdoors has just fueled the fire in my soul to want to advocate for the outdoors, because I've been able to experience such beautiful places and I want them to exist for generations to come. And especially with the rise in natural disasters that we've seen, such as the wildfires and the bushfires in Australia, I think finally the natural disasters that are to this magnitude are finally making its way into the general public and in news, and basically waking people up, like making them open their eyes to the reality of what humans are doing to the planet. And I think what's really frustrating sometimes with what I share on social media and my efforts is that sometimes I feel like I'm standing alone and that nobody cares enough to want to do anything. And I think I have to check myself when I feel like that, because I know I'm never alone in this fight and in advocacy, because there are so many people who are lobbying and trying to, get in front of government to show the science and the evidence behind what's happening, because this isn't just woo-woo things that we're speculating. There is hard science behind it to show that, there are so many detriments in terms of the rise in wildfires and how warm the whole planet is getting. Antarctica is reaching almost 70 degrees. That is wild. It has never been that hot there before. And what's happening with animal extinction and microplastics in the oceans, it's all there. And the evidence is just going to keep becoming more and more prevalent as we discover more and as scientists get to show all their findings soon. But I just love that there's more. I guess it's a good and bad thing that that it had to become a trend for people to kind of notice it, and it had to become something that was kind of like fashionable, or like
Mm-hmm.
and I get it. Marketing is very powerful and so I understand that, but I'm here for it. I think if brands can advocate for more sustainable practices and better business practices that are better for the earth, then why not? But yeah, I think the biggest thing I struggle with is feeling like I'm standing alone sometimes, and that I'm just talking and nobody's listening to the urgency that we have right now for our planet. And I think until we are directly affected by something such as a natural disaster in our actual vicinity, some people are just not going to wake up. They're going to say, oh, it's halfway across the world, doesn't affect me, I can't see the detriments of climate change. And I think that's it is sad, but for some people ignorance is bliss. And I mean, change is going to be coming, and Mother Nature has no mercy. And I think it is going to start affecting people whether they want to open up their eyes or not. And so, unfortunately, I think it's going to have to be something like that for some people to wake up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can relate to that feeling alone. On, you know, there's been so many instances in the past 2 years where not necessarily like one particular post or anything like that on social media, and more so on my personal page. That's kind of where I go into it more. But like, feeling like I'm like, and it's hard to talk about, to be honest, because I almost I have a lot of distress about it, and I'm okay talking about that. I've been having a lot of distress about it. For the past few years, I've been having nightmares about like how the earth is changing. And so I definitely can relate to posting something and feeling alone and almost feeling like it's falling on deaf ears. And then I almost feel like a little drop in this huge ocean that no one cares that what I'm saying, or I'm directing you to take action for this. And it becomes heavy. And how do you distinguish, or where do you draw the line between feeling so heavy and disempowered and also showing up empowered? Because I think that's a huge one, at least something that I struggle with, and would love to hear how you handle that.
Yeah, I think that anxiety around climate change is so real, and I know it's been experienced by a lot of people who are really passionate about this, so you are not alone. And I think what I had to come to terms with and come to peace with was that even if I don't see firsthand of the call to action that I'm asking for, little things like me bringing a water bottle to work and my coworker telling me months later that she got her own water bottle and that she's not using single-use water bottles anymore, I know that even if I'm not actively preaching about it, me living the way that I live and little tiny things like bringing my own water bottle does make a difference, because she started telling her husband to, take his own water bottle. And I think in our day to day, really we have to lead by example. And sometimes it's an action or a behavior that people take in, not necessarily your words. And I've been very comforted by that. And then just speaking about it over and over again on social media. Sometimes people need to hear the message multiple times and in different ways. And I think I have been trying to figure out how to connect that and have people care about the environment in terms of, even if it's not for you, don't you want to do it for your kids, or do you want to do it for like future generations or for the animals? Like, you have to like relate it back to something that someone cares about. because it might not necessarily resonate for them the same way that it resonates with you. And I've just found that even if the ripple effect isn't a huge a huge wave, that even touching one person, that person can tell another person, and so on and so forth, even if I can't physically see it with my eyes. And yeah, I think the biggest thing was just coming to peace with like, okay, my actions, even if I don't necessarily think that I'm making a huge difference, I know that my ripple effect can affect someone else, even indirectly. Even if it's at here in Washington, we can recycle flexible plastics, and so you can bring it to a grocery store and you can find a local drop-off center. And I know that even someone who's passing by, walking into the grocery store, seeing me put flexible plastics in there, maybe that'll plant the seed. Even if they don't take action this year, maybe it's next year that they're like, oh, I remember seeing that girl putting this plastic in there, maybe I should do that. So you never know that, planting that seed, it might be a long-term thing, but still planting that seed is important. I found a lot of peace with that.
And living it and showing your lifestyle, however you decide to, whether it's online or whether it's through work, taking your water bottle to work, or whether your family observes you doing XYZ, like you are living it. And that's what you can't control. You can't control how you show up. And then you can, I think people, in terms of like their readiness to change, you're right. They may not be ready yet, but they can observe and, maybe in a few weeks, few months, or even next year or whatever, they can say, you know what, like, I'm ready for that change. And it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And so I think a lot of people get defeated by that. They get defeated by all or nothing. And a lot of people think, well, I can't like, say I'm protecting the earth when I drink paper straws but still eat meat. Or I can't, like, people are really conflicted with that. So what's your philosophy around that, and how can you encourage people to start small?
Yeah, I definitely think this is such an important topic around sustainability, because this all or nothing, it is very frustrating, and it feels like, you're either for the earth or against it. But as with any other behavioral change, it takes time, and you can't implement it all at one time. Like, you would never say, okay, I'm going to become an Olympian today, and so that means I have to do like 3 workouts a day and eat this many calories. Like, you would never do that. It takes steps, step by step. And I think the most important thing with sustainability is that you can change one thing and implement that one change for a month, and then add on something else, challenge yourself to do something else, whether that's like, okay, this month I'm going to challenge myself to eat one less red meat meal a week. And I think the biggest thing with change is just trying to implement it in a sustainable way that you can do it long lasting. And so it's not saying like, oh, I have to become a vegan today, because that can become very, very frustrating and restricting. And I know with diets and stuff, when you cut out something, you're going to automatically, kind of like has a rebound effect. You're going to want to just eat everything. And so just reducing red meat, or saying like, okay, I'm going to swap out one meal. Instead of having a steak, we're going to have shrimp, or we're going to have fish. All that makes a big difference. And I know for people, this like all or nothing mentality feels like, if you're not gung-ho about it, then you're like not a real one. But that's not true. Because even if all of us had a little tiny change, all that is magnified into big change in the long run. And we don't need like 10 people to become zero wasters. We need everybody to like take reusable shopping bags and not use those plastic bags anymore. And it just takes a little bit of change. And I think people have to just be super kind to themselves and say like, listen, I'm doing my best. And, I'm not perfect either. I've used plastic bags, Ziploc bags to go backpacking. It literally killed me to do that. But I was like, you know what, for right now, like, wait, I'm carrying 40 pounds on my back. If I have to package some of my food in Ziploc bags, fine. But in my head, I was like, okay, so how can I do better going forward? I think it's just instead of being so hard on yourself and judging yourself, just say like, I'm trying and that effort matters. I'm doing my best and that's all that I can ask myself to do. That's all I can ask others to do. And I think, when we see these like really drastic pages like zero waste people, I think it is very overwhelming because it's one, seems like you have to drop a lot of money to change everything into mason jars and like,
Mm-hmm.
everything has to be so perfect. But I think being more eco-friendly means, especially for products, it doesn't mean throwing out everything that you have. Use up what you have, and then the next time you have to buy a product, then try to choose something that's going to be more eco-friendly. I think there's too much of, because if you just throw everything that you already have, you're just creating more waste for the landfills. Like, use up what you have. Let's not be wasteful here. And then the next time you choose to buy something, then you look into what could be a good alternative. I think, I think with anything like this to become more eco-friendly, one, it has to be simple and it has to be not overwhelming to people. And it has to be also convenient, honestly. I think
Yes.
we live in a very fast world. We do a lot of things and people are overachievers. And I understand if, let's say, bringing your own containers to the grocery store is like, if it's not automatic, because like you have to make that conscious choice at first. If it's not automatic, if it's not easy, if the grocery store gives you a hard time about it, all those things are maybe to some people a waste of time, because they're like, I don't have time to do this. I have to just get into the store, get what I need and leave. And I know this is going to be a very, very slow change with, little things like this, like bringing your own containers to stores. But I think the more as consumers that we choose products and support businesses that are supporting the world, then, we're going to see this slow change and this trend just continue to get better.
Right. I definitely see how it is like both a bottom up and a top down change. Like, yes, like our leaders have to make really big, important decisions. And it's also us, like individuals, with our choices. Every choice, everything we do is a vote for something. And then industries are now driven by trying to be more sustainable. And that's, not to say every company is already doing it, but I definitely have seen that trend, and it's because we're demanding it. And that's how, the market works. And so don't discredit or discard, oh, what I do is not going to make a difference. It totally makes a difference because, for example, Mike and I, we have canvas bags we take to the grocery store, but a few months ago, we also got mesh produce bags. And over the time of a few months, we've probably saved hundreds of bags. And we are not, like, for example, sometimes when I have to like go to like a fast food place or whatever and have to use plastic silverware, that kills me, and like I want to die inside. But then I'm thinking like, yes, I can't, like I still have to eat. And like it's not like that all or nothing. Like being kind to yourself, and thinking about what change can you do next. And so like I got a portable like silverware kit that I'm gonna take with me, and it's like, but it takes like it's taken me months to kind of get to this place. And like I think you've said it so wonderfully, to be kind to yourself, to layer changes over time. And if you want to implement changes, I highly recommend reading the book Atomic Habits. I'm reading that book now, and you said a lot of the principles he talks about in the book, the author, about if you want to make habits stick, they have to be easy, they have to be convenient, the cues have to be like right there for you. It can't be difficult. And like also, if you want to drop a bad habit, you have to make it difficult, you have to make it inconvenient. So I'm still in the middle of that book. I'm a slow reader, but I think that can apply to anything, including making habits to help you be more sustainable. So basically, I want to ask you, what are you doing now? Like, what are some of your favorite sustainable tips, like off the top of your head, that you are implementing now? Because we know, like, okay, we take the bags to the grocery store, but are there anything right now that you are loving, that is you feel like it's really good and sustainable for the planet?
Yeah, I think so. I've been really trying to change my toiletries to become more sustainable. So for a long time, I was doing research in terms of toothpaste, for example. You know, I was trying to use up all the toothpaste that I had, but I didn't want to buy plastic tubes anymore. And so I was looking into different products that either had um, like glass jars or, you know, a tube that you can mail back to them or something like that. And I finally, I'm using this company called Bite, and they are little toothpaste tablets, and they're dry, and you chew on it and then you brush your teeth with it. And I've really liked that, but I think it's really interesting right now in terms of as a consumer when I run out of something trying to find like the eco-friendly alternative. So I'm almost out of detergent, so I said I don't want to buy another jug of detergent. What alternatives are there out there? And so I found this company called Drops, and they're little water soluble little pods that you can throw in, and the entire packaging is all compostable and recyclable, and it's good for the earth. And there are literally eco-friendly swaps for every single thing that you can find, and even in terms of like clothing. So in the wintertime, I was feeling very uninspired by my wardrobe, and I was thinking, I'm a traveler, I don't need more clothes, but also it's important to me to, you know, what you wear really brings out a certain type of energy. And so I said, okay, I'm going to donate what I have, but I'm going to try to thrift as much as I can. And, you know, there's so much clothing that's out there, and you don't necessarily need to buy something new because someone else's used clothes can be your new. And so I got a whole new wardrobe just from Facebook Marketplace and thrift shops, and I absolutely love that. It's one, cheap, and you're buying these quality clothes and you don't have to buy completely new. And you're not only supporting local businesses, which is just going to help the local economy, but you're also, of course, like not having all that packaging come into your house, and, you know, all the shipping that has, or the carbon emissions that have to do with shipping things. And so I think there's just like little changes that we have to implement. And, you know, I almost find it like a fun challenge now, whatever consumer habit that I have, like how can I make it more sustainable? Like I used to be an Amazon addict, and literally buying like one day I'll buy this, the next day I'll buy another thing. And I had to realize like, oh my gosh, there's like a lot of those like plastic envelopes coming in, and it caused me a lot of distress. And so now what I do and try to do is like try to like save up all my Amazon purchases for like the entire week, and then do a huge order so that hopefully it comes in a box versus like all these tiny little plastic envelopes. Like if I don't need it immediately, I think like the catch 22 is like Amazon is so convenient that you can get it the next day.
Right.
If you like need something last minute, I think that should be used as a last resort. And so I try to just foreshadow what I'm going to need, and whether it's like, oh, I need protein powder and I need this, just say like, okay, don't wait for the last minute to anticipate that you're going to need something. Just save up all those items and then bulk order it. And so, yeah, those are just a couple of things that I've implemented into my life recently.
That's cool. And by the way, I'm not saying this to say this, but I really mean it. When you posted something on your stories, like about Facebook Marketplace, it actually, I've used it before, like years ago, but like you posted about it recently and it inspired me. And I sold some of my shoes through there recently, like this week.
Yay!
So I used Marketplace, or I was going to take my clothes somewhere, or probably like I wasn't sure what to do with it, but like I feel really good that like I utilize that platform for that. It's going into like good hands, like it's like someone bought it versus just like dropping it off. And also like, you know, throughout this process, you're always like, you have to accept that you're going to quote unquote mess up or do like the wrong move, but as long as you keep trying and keep forgiving yourself, excuse me, that's so important in moving forward and making it fun. I feel like you've made it fun. Like you've made it like a fun challenge. And I feel like that could be really fun to get like your family involved in like making it a challenge and what can you do next. And it does require planning, because I feel like you said, it can't be so last minute, but it takes a moment to figure out like what you need and how you can keep the momentum going. So it does take planning. I think you highlighted some great examples that I never thought about, and I think a lot of people also, it may be new to them, like the toothpaste. And there's in every little corner of our lives we can find ways to make changes that can help us in the long term. So one last question I want to ask you in terms of travel and like responsible travel. That's also been like a trendy word, but what does that mean, at least for you, and how are you practicing that?
I haven't necessarily done the most extensive research with responsible or sustainable travel, but to me, that means, I mean, I think all of this has to go around the intention. And the intention is to do better for the earth, do better for us, and do better for the planet, obviously. And so for me, responsible travel means understanding that when you take a flight somewhere, that's a lot of carbon emissions. And there are companies that now will neutralize all the carbon emissions that you produced in a year or whatever time that is. And so I told myself for the end of 2020, I'm going to add up all the mileage that I flew wherever. And then my Christmas gift to myself is going to be to neutralize all the carbon emissions that I've emitted. And I think for me, it's again like trying to find like fun ways to reduce my carbon emissions, especially because driving, especially in the United States, is, drives up carbon emissions. And so I'm looking for a new apartment soon, and I want to make that intention to try to be closer to my gyms and my yoga studio so that hopefully I can bike to those places. And I'm going to buy a bike for my birthday. And I think it's just trying to implement it and understand, again, you know, it's not about being perfect. I don't want to feel bad that I have to drive to work because I have to get to work, but it's having that intention of how can I do better and how can I just reduce maybe one day of driving. It all makes a difference. And for me, responsible travel also means that, for example, when I go to the airport, I'm not going to buy a single-use water bottle. I'm going to bring my reusable water bottle, fill up at the airport, and I'm going to bring Ziploc bags so I can stash some snacks. I can bring utensils. I think it just is bringing those easy habits around when you're traveling, because also you never know like what's going to be accessible to you when you're traveling. And so kind of being prepared, like I went to Hawaii about a month ago, and so I brought a coffee mug and I brought my reusable bottle and Ziploc bags and my utensils, and I tried to use as many times as I could. I went to the farmer's market one time and I didn't have my utensils, so I had to use plastic utensils. But you know what? The intention was still there, because another time when I went, I did have my reusable utensils, and I got to use that and refused single-use plastic utensils. And so I think just having that intention and implementing that into your lifestyle, whether you're traveling or not, is really important. And again, by example, people are like, oh, that's such a good idea, I should do that. I think it's just being able to implement that in your everyday and carrying that out no matter where you are is a really important thing in terms of responsible travel. And just understanding, behind all our actions is an impact on the earth, and how can we neutralize it or make it better.
Yeah, I've been looking into the carbon, what do you call it? Carbon offsetting?
Carbon neutrality.
Yeah.
Yeah, or offsetting.
Yeah, so I have a ton of research to do myself in terms of that. And I know, like, I see the good thing about Instagram is, like, we think of the word influencer, we kind of think of it as kind of dirty, but there are a lot of eco influencers now that like will recommend like eco hotels, from like $1 sign to $4 signs, and there's like kind of something for everyone, in terms of different experiences and how we can travel more sustainably. I know as a traveling therapist that likes to travel, it's pretty layered, for us. But in terms of like being sustainable all around, but even taking a vacation, bringing along your water bottle, like those things make a difference. So, I could talk about this forever and ever. It's pretty, like, I know you and I like to nerd out on sustainability. But I hope that like the people listening took something valuable away. I certainly did. So where can people find you and connect with you?
Yeah, so on Instagram is where you can find the most like day-to-day updates. And so my Instagram is EXPLORN_EMCHENG. That's Explorin M Cheng. And then you can also find me on YouTube and also on Facebook at also the same without the underscore Explorin M Cheng. And I just also want to add this last piece that as healthcare providers, I found that I always was wondering if healthcare and the environment meshed well together. And I always thought that it was so juxtaposed that they don't go along. But it actually goes hand in hand because we are seeing how the environment is directly affecting the patients that we're seeing. There's a huge rise in respiratory diseases and also comorbidities that we're seeing in our patients. And it does go hand in hand. And also, I think as healthcare providers, advocating for the environment is showing the public that it does matter and that it directly affects us. And so I think it really is important for people to see on social media and in real life that healthcare providers do care about the environment.
Oh, yes. Thank you for bringing that up because, yeah, it's a public health concern. And as healthcare providers, it is our responsibility to be advocates for that. So, oh my goodness, thank you for bringing that up. That's like really important. As you know, the cherry on top of this whole interview, why should you care? Because like you're a healthcare professional and this does impact patient health and also like public health. And as an occupational therapist, I did see some sort of statement. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I did see a statement of like an emerging practice field in occupational therapy that did concern climate change, environmental changes, and our role as OTs with those populations most directly impacted by climate change and how sea level rising and all that. So definitely a frontier for healthcare. We need to explore that. Personally, yes, and as a whole, we need to keep exploring that and make a difference. So, amen. Okay, this is awesome. Okay, so what I like to always end with this question: what makes you your most lit up self?
What makes me my most loved self? Definitely being outdoors and any type of outdoor adventures, specifically usually backpacking or hiking. I think being able to get away from the constant stimulation that we are subdued to in modern society is such a rare experience. And so when I can go outside and kind of be more in solitude and be more grounded and in tune with myself, that's honestly where I am my most lit self because I don't have the voices of other people, telling me how to feel or think. I can literally be with myself and sort through either challenges or problems or thoughts that I don't normally have the time or space to actually think through. So that's my happy place, the outdoors.
Oh, I can so feel you on that. Thank you, Em.
Thank you so much for having me.